there's also some expectations that take place during your Tier 3 RTI meetings. At this level, you're going to want that parent involvement because you are moving through a more intensive plan for support. You're going to want to, at this, and this will say this at B here on your sheet, you're going to want to go ahead and get that permission for your hearing screening, vision screening, and motor screenings to make sure that there's not problems in any of those issues that would be a factor of why this child's not progressing. As you move on down through the sheet, it's the same as Tier 2. You're going to be looking to see if that intervention is effective, what you need to tweak about it, if you need to make a total program change, or you're just going to provide more intensive support in that area. You're going to meet and you're going to discuss what type of progress are you getting. And I know they said this in Tier 2, are you making good progress? If you are, you're going to bump back to Tier 2. If your progress is kind of just like a little bit stagnant, you might need to look at what type of intervention you're doing. Is it appropriate for that specific deficit skill? You might need a little tweaking. If you're not making any progress or it's inadequate progress, then that's when you're going to look at a referral for a multidisciplinary evaluation for special ed. That's when you'll move to that area.
Yeah, and remember, just like Tier 2, 6 to 8 weeks. So again, you, as the RTI team, you guys as your at school level RTI teams will look at that data. You know, if you already know at 6 weeks there is no movement and you've done it with fidelity, then again, you know, no need to go to 8 weeks. But if you see within that 6 weeks, hey, you know, at first they wouldn't responding to this instruction, but the last few weeks that line's going up. Well, you know what, we're going to give it a few more weeks to see what it's doing. And again, if you get to 8 weeks and it's like, gosh, all of a sudden they're taking off, you know, no need for the referral right now for special education. We may want to go 12 weeks because they're responding and they're finally getting it. So again, that's some leeway that you as an RTI team back in your district has. Like Marta said, one of the things when we get to Tier 3, that's that, you know, 5% of kids, 1 to 5%. And so after Tier 3, if they're not making progress, there is no Tier 4. And I've heard some people say Tier 4. There's no Tier 4. The next step is that referral to special education, okay? And a part of those referrals is having that vision, hearing, and motor screening if you're looking at SLD. So that's why during that Tier 3 phase, you want to go ahead and start those things so that you'll have all those supports in place when you get to that referral. And like Shauna had mentioned earlier, we are an RTI district. One of the questions on the SLD eligibility forms was parents notified, when were they notified, and how were they notified? So again, if you're following the process and you've completed those letters, then you've done your homework, and when we get to that referral or eligibility, then we've done all of our requirements that we're required to do, plus that's just what's best for kids, right? Tom, I know you had a question.
Well, this, just for anybody, is attendance a part of this process?
Yes.
Talking about it as RTI team?
On the Google form, the RTI form, there's, again, when it says that you pick the area that they're struggling with, you know, there's a second question, what other factors? And again, attendance can be one of those factors that you're looking at.
Let's say we have a student that is a special education student under the area of SLD, but they're exhibiting behavior issues. Go through the tier process the same, and then special ed maybe look at other areas of eligibility?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Exactly right. Any other questions?
Heather?
We have a high transit population. What about students that come in that already have 68 weeks of RTI? There's been some confusion about, do we start that process over? If they're in the district, no. If they're out of the district, yes. So what are your thoughts on that?
If you have data, then you just pick up right there and use that data, and then you may want to collect some more.
From an outside of the county school.
If it's valid, yes, and you have data, yes, you can use that. Because again, just because they move, we don't want to penalize the student in giving them what they need.
Can you still collect data concurrently with the referral?
Yes, and you should collect data along with the referral. So once you've moved from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, into a special education referral, we still collect that data along the way. We're still collecting all that data because we're going to need that data to make the eligibility decision. So that's a good thing, a good question to point out.
Sometimes they will have a parent request for testing, and so it's still okay then to do, and we don't have data on that student because it's not really been we've not seen from the parent.
Yeah.
And, so it's okay to, again, it's okay at that point in time with that, in that instance, to go ahead and collect data.
Yes. The law is very clear that you cannot deny a parent from requesting an evaluation due to RTI. So if they're adamant that they want that referral or they want that testing, then we have to move forward with the process. Now again, the law doesn't say we test, it says we hold a meeting and we discuss a referral. So as the ARC team, they may say there's not enough data here to suspect that this student may have a disability. But if there's enough data there, then we must proceed with evaluating, and then we would do those tiers along the way. And then similar, once we do the testing and we do find them eligible, let's say for reading, then they're obviously going to get an IEP and they're going to get specially designed instruction in reading. However, they still get that tier 1, they still get that tier 2, they still get that tier 3. Now they're going to get SDI on top of that. Because again, we're talking about our most skill deficit kids. So again, you don't want to take those interventions away from them and now just give them whatever their IEP says. They're getting this above and beyond. Once they get that IEP, and that's accommodations that listed on their IEP, then they get to get that accommodation. Again, part of that is, have they been using it all year long? But again, have they been using it all year long while on that IEP?
I feel a difference in the room than what I felt a little while ago, and I get that. It's 2:30, it's Friday, your stomachs are full, so I appreciate you've been a great audience and you're hanging in there. We had originally asked you to bring your homework from May, and that was really just we were going to go through an activity, a Padlet activity, to build a resource for you all. Obviously, that homework's for you to do a needs assessment of where are we in our school? What do we have? What do we need support with? What do we not have? So I'm sure after engaging in this work today, that plan's already tweaked in your mind and you are generating ideas around that. So we're gonna hold off on that Padlet just because I feel that we're gonna move on with our agenda. But what we want to wrap this time up with is we do have one thing that we would like to show. This was an example that someone shared, a school worked on prior to this day, and this was that template that Tara had shared in the May principals meeting. You didn't have to use this template, it was just a resource that we put together for you to do that needs assessment. So as you're looking in your building, what are the interventions that I have, whether it's academic, behavior, social and emotional, what interventions do I have, what staff do I have who can deliver it, what area does it fall under, what tier is it currently in your building, and then just any kind of questions or support that you might need. So as you've sifted through all of this today, this is where I would encourage you to go back with your school team. And I know that if you did this after May, it's going to look completely different now, most likely. What I would encourage you to do, if I'm in your shoes, and if I'm still a building principal, this column that says tier 2 or 3, I would consider adding a resource to that, because when you start getting into the specifics of scheduling, for example, I'm going to use an example from this chart here. We have a program here, I'm assuming it's a behavior program. We have special education staff, and if I go across, it says tier 2. Most of you, I would not think, would have cushion in your staffing or schedule for your special education staff to run a tier 2 behavior intervention program for students who are not special ed. You might have a little wiggle room somewhere, but it would be highly unlikely that you have a lot of room for your special education staff to do a tier 2 behavior intervention for students who are not special ed. So if you're using this program and special education members are teaching it, if I'm in your shoes, in that column I would put resource, because that's probably resource time in their IEP, and that's also another visual for your team to know if that's resource, then we can't schedule other students who are not receiving resource minutes in that block of time. Does that make sense? So really look at going back to the definitions of what's Tier 2, what did we define as Tier 3, and take that with this new learning today. And I know, as we said at the beginning, this is a marathon, and we've fed you a lot, and that was intentional, because it's going to give you a lot of time now to process this as a team, come up with your plan to feed your team. Your teachers will need all of this. Your staff will need to be fed this, chunked. And I know we didn't chunk it necessarily today for you, but we knew that you needed this up front on this part of the summer. So we're going to skip the Padlet. Again, that was going to be used to create a resource that if Simon Kenton was using an excellent intervention program, we were going to ask schools to put an asterisk by it, like, we love this, we're seeing a lot of results and success with this. Then other schools in the room would be able to use that as a resource and say, hey, I'd like to reach out to Simon Kenton and go see that. But I know you've reached a point where we're ready to move on. So I would just encourage you to, what we are asking you to do between now and August is process, after Dr. Webb said, of course, after you rest and have fun. Process this, come up with your plan, your revised plan. So when we revisit this in August, we're asking that you come with your plan. What is your plan at Fort Wright to address this pyramid? I know some of you have already created school-specific pyramids, which is awesome. But also that reflective tool, that's going to help us further help you. We need to know what your questions are, what your needs are, and I know you have a list of questions, and you're going to think of questions as you continue to leave here. So we hope you found this helpful and beneficial for your students. We want your feedback. It's fluid. Any final thoughts, questions, or comments for the group that you'd like to share or ask?